Welcome to the Nerd and Normie Podcast. I'm a big film nerd, Everett.
And I'm Emerald, and I'm engaged to a nerd.
On this week's episode, we will be doing two different movies.
I chose the 2024 Mean Girls, the musical film. That's directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. The screenplay is Tina Fey.
And I chose The Book of Clarence, written and directed by James Samuel. For both of these movies, we will do non-spoilers and then spoilers. Time codes will be down in the description below. Let's get into it.
All right, for my choice this week, I chose Mean Girls, the musical. This stars Renee Rapp, Anjori Rice, Avantika Vandanapu, and Christopher Briney. It also has Tina Fey returning as Miss Norbury, as well as Tim Meadows as Principal Duval. Everett liked this one more than I did. I love the original Mean Girls. I think it's phenomenal.
I've seen it maybe twice, and I've always thought, yeah, I get it, not for me.
I love Renee Rapp. I think she is so cool and awesome and beautiful and wonderful and talented. But overall, it kind of just fell flat to me. I thought it wasn't as funny as the original. I thought the songs were fine, but the Broadway ones are better. It was overall just fine to me.
Yeah, I thought it was slightly better than fine. I really, particularly Renee Rapp, is fantastic in this movie. And I thought, the first act or so is a little bit just retreading stuff we've seen, but with a few musical numbers, and I was like, oh, this is fine. But as it kept going, I found it kind of grew on me, and I cared more about these characters in this version of them than I thought I would, and I enjoyed myself walking out of the theater. However, this was never a movie I was super excited for or really for me in any way. So Emerald has since played me a few of the Broadway versions of the songs, and I don't know why, I don't get it, but they really just slowed them down, took out the fun instrumentation, and this movie is bright and it's fun and it's fast paced, and then when you hear the difference in the musical numbers, it is shocking that they chose to do this. I don't know.
It's only really Katie Heron's songs that they slowed down, so I don't know if maybe they casted her and she wasn't really up for it, or I don't know why they made those decisions, but I wasn't going to see it originally because I'm going to be mean, but I don't really like the girl who plays Katie. I've seen her in a few other things, and she just bugs me a little bit. And then to have only her songs really, really different from the original is also kind of odd to me, but c'est la vie. It is what it is. I didn't think I was going to like it a ton, and I didn't, so I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's it. We'll go into spoilers. All right, spoilers for Mean Girls the musical. It's a musical. They didn't really advertise that a ton. It wasn't really in the trailers, but it is a musical. It follows the same story as the original. A girl who was homeschooled in Africa moves to the U.S. and starts at a regular high school. In this one, she's a lot more excited to start high school than she was in the original. She sings a whole song about how it's going to be her time, whatever, which I think clarifies the character's choices a little bit, because she just wants to be liked by people and doesn't really know how, because she was just around her mom the whole time. They also lean very heavily in this one into the fact that she's only being a mean girl to get Aaron Samuels. I feel like in the original one, Aaron's kind of like a consolation prize. Obviously she likes him, but she's not just doing it to get Aaron. But this one, that's specifically her sole drive, is that she wants to date Aaron Samuels. He doesn't sing at all, which was kind of odd to me because the only other thing I've seen him in, he sings. So that was an interesting choice. But yeah, so she goes to high school. She befriends two kind of like weird kids, and they set her to go befriend the mean girls because the mean girls think that she's pretty.
Yeah, and the two weird friends very easily in a different movie would have been the worst and so annoying and just so one note and basic. But I actually thought they did a really good job. I don't remember them. Again, I've only seen the original once or twice. I hardly remember what they were like in the original, so I cannot say how they differ or what, but I enjoyed these characters.
Yeah, the only review I'd seen before we went to the movie said that they changed Janice Ian's character too much and that she wasn't as goth and weird, but I think she, as far as you can be in a musical, was exactly the same character as the original. She's goth, she's weird, she has funky makeup, she's an artist. The only thing is that the thing that, what's her name, Regina George was insulting her about wasn't just that she was a lesbian. That was in the original one, but obviously in 2024, you can't really have lesbian be the insulting thing that drives her, so she turned her into like a pyromaniac as well. And that's, whatever. And yep. I think she did good. I think her song was really well done. Obviously, she's the girl who did the voice of Moana, so we already knew she was a talented singer, but I think she did really well in this. Obviously, Renee Rapp also was incredible in everything she does ever, and I'm in love with her.
She was really strong in this. From the trailers, I could not care less about this version of Regina George, and again, don't really care about the other version of Regina George, and so I was just like, okay, whatever, this'll be a movie. But Renee Rapp actually really impressed me with her comedic timing, her just vibe and fun, and I think she really enjoyed playing this role for a film, and it went really, really well. And so at the very least, this movie seems like a strong platform for pushing Renee Rapp to the next level, and I would be shocked if she doesn't do more film after this.
Yeah, I also will say this one, I think, clarifies more why they do the behaviors that they do, whereas, like, in the original, they're mean for no reason, but this one, like, you can kind of understand where each of the characters are coming from because, yes, they're teenagers and they're being mean, but, like, they're teenagers.
Yeah, there's a not surprising amount of depth because it's not like a super deep emotional story, but and I think they did a really good balance of this. They rounded off the characters so you understood who they are. You felt like even characters who were only in it for a little bit of the film, I understood why they're there and what they're doing. And, without having to be this super dragging on, slow, dramatic moments, like, it was able to get across why these characters are acting the way they're acting and what they're doing and why the dynamics between them are the way they are. And I think I felt sympathetic to every character in this movie in some capacity, even the ones who are bad or just stupid for the sake of stupid and just all of these like different things that we've seen a million times. Each character you understood. Yeah. And I could, if I was in their shoes, I could see myself handling things similarly.
And Lindsay Lohan was in it for a minute. She made a little cameo appearance, which was cute. But yeah, overall, it was okay. I would probably rate it like a 6 out of 10, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go too much different. I also probably will just say a 6. Like it's a solid, better than average ish movie that I think some people will really, really enjoy. Other people, it'll never hold a candle to the original. This is, why would they do this? It's terrible.
Well, the original is a cult classic.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's fair enough. It's been over 20 years since the original. I think they did a good job of like updating this for social media and the modern era and stuff. And so I think if it is such a great cult classic story, why shouldn't it get updated for the way things have changed and things like the butt of the joke is not just being a lesbian. It should be, something more than that, because as a society, teenagers in general are caring less about that kind of stuff. And so I think it's good that they're trying to, keep around these similar principles and stories that connected so well, but just update it for a slightly more modern audience.
Yep.
Do you like gum?
Sure.
Oh, no, I don't have any. I was just...
You're a mess.
We will help you, Caddy.
Alright, this week I chose The Book of Clarence, directed and written by James Samuel and starring Lakeith Stanfield as the titular Clarence, or Clance. This...
Boo.
Know what you're getting into. The marketing does not tell you what this is.
The marketing says this is a comedy. It is not.
It's supposed to be the premise. Actually, give me 1 second. I'll pull up the IMDb description. Okay. Struggling to find a better life, Clarence is captivated by the power of the rising Messiah and soon risks everything to carve a path to a divine existence. And basically, when you watch the trailers, you see Lakeith Stanfield, he notices Jesus is getting rich and famous, and so he goes, oh, I'm a down-on-my-luck kind of guy, I'm going to try and do that. And I thought that was a very clever and interesting setup for a comedy.
We pitched that exact idea to each other like 6 months ago. So, it sounded good.
And Lakeith Stanfield, wonderful actor. He is really good in this. But they tell you it's going to be this comedy that's kind of, funny, whatever. It is
a religious drama.
It is a religious drama. It's fast-paced in the editing and the shooting, but it is not fast-paced in the comedy or anything. In fact, I only laughed maybe twice in this whole movie.
They do make a few good points about, racism that's still in, current times that's existing, but other than that,
yeah,
it was a rough watch.
I think the issue for this movie is, first off, it's boring. But second, it's going to rub the religious crowd the wrong way, because your lead man, who we're cheering for the whole movie, is a drug dealer. He's making jokes. He doesn't believe, and he's being super obstinate, and they're going to, brothels and stuff. Again, everyone's clothed and stuff because this is PG-13. But, it is pushing that edge and going to rub certain members in the religious area the wrong way. And then we spend the last 5 minutes of the movie on a complete 180 just lecturing the audience about why you should be a Christian, which, again, fair enough if you're making a Christian movie, but, tell your audience...
Warner Brother.
It should just be a little more upfront, and I think because of that, this movie is going to really suffer. It is not doing well at the box office. It's not doing great critically because religious people are going to be mad and not give it the time for it to deliver its message.
And people who went for a comedy.
And non-religious people or people wanting a comedy are going to be let down by the lack of any sort of comedy.
Anything, yeah. The cast is great. It has a really, really strong cast. James McAvoy's in it, who is the love of my life also. But, it's just not great. I mean, not surprisingly, after watching it, our theater in Utah was me and Everett and another couple who came in about, 10 minutes after the movie started.
Yeah, and so, again, that's what we're saying. This movie... very clearly is trying to put out a message to convert a modern audience to Christianity, and yet here we live in the most Christian state in the U.S. probably, almost certainly, and there were 4 of us in the theater.
Yeah.
And so you're missing the one audience who will support this, and then... as we've said, you're just alienating.
It's you spend the first 90% of the movie insulting Christians and the last 5 minutes of the movie talking about why everyone who's not Christian is bad.
Yeah. Though, I will also say, it does do a good job. I felt for a while, I kind of tried to readjust my mind. This isn't a comedy, it's a drama. And it does a good job of saying, hey, if you actually look at what the original... idea of Christianity is supposed to be, and if you're going to cast a stone, be sinless, the first to cast a stone, let him be sinless, whatever that saying is, things like that come up in this, and it's very trying to say look, modern Christianity, I understand why younger people are moving away from it. The institutionalized nature of it is struggling to work in a modern world. Here's why you should follow it still, though. But it never does that well. If this was a good movie, then you could get your message across. But it's just not. Yeah. It's slow and dull. And if it weren't for Lakeith Stanfield, this movie would fall so hard.
Yeah. They do make a point, though, like I said, touching on like racism in the current day. So, the Romans are coming after them, and they have an African man running away from the police. His back is turned. He's not going to hurt them, obviously, and they still shoot him in the back multiple times, which happens nowadays. Towards, the end, someone is about to be murdered, and his mother is sobbing that they always take their children, and it's true. And so they do touch on a lot of good matter, and like all of the Christian stuff, like Jesus isn't trying to be famous. He's not trying to pretend to do all these miracles. He's literally like the Messiah who's saving people whenever he can and being very helpful and preaching, not to judge, not to cast the first stone all this stuff. And it's just
how it's getting perverted and twisted, and even back then, but also in the modern age. And I think that's a decent story to tell. And I almost kind of wish, if you weren't going to be very funny, which it's not, like, this could have been a really interesting and impactful and timely drama for the modern world, which is struggling with this whole institutionalized religion versus what kind of social movements are happening in the world, and people who are caught in the middle. There's not a lot of media out there for them. It's either you're in one camp or the other nowadays, and this movie is trying to be in that gray area. But it's just not flat. As good. It's just not an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
So there we go. Let's head into some spoilers. All right. So spoilers for the Book of Clarence. Lakeith Stanfield is, as we said, just kind of, he owes some money to a guy who runs like a brothel or something, and he has the hots for his sister, and he loses it all in a chariot race, and so he's needs to make money quick or he's going to be put to death in 30 days.
Yeah, he's also like a drug dealer. He doesn't believe in God. He's
very anti any sort of religion, establishment, anything like that. And his twin brother is one of the apostles, Thomas, of Jesus. And there's this whole undercurrent of like Thomas ran away and was hiding from their family and his problems to go be with Jesus, and just, if you're going to preach these things, why aren't you helping honor thy mother or thy father and thy mother, all of these things, and yet you just ran away and are living a good life out here while we're scraping by on the streets. And there's lots of commentary on, police brutality and the way search and seizures and, unlawful searches of people and asking for identification of people who are clearly not the criminals in a scenario, things like this that are important and timely. One of the few jokes that did land was Benedict Cumberbatch plays this like super poor beggar guy, and in the end Jesus blesses him and gives him some money, and so he goes and gets himself cleaned up, and then they put him in like a wig and a robe, so he looks like the stereotypical Jesus you see in the Catholic Church, and then he gets crucified, or everyone thinks he's the Messiah because he's so white and pure and he must
trustworthy. Yeah.
And so then the Romans crucify him as well, and he's up there, and some guy just happens to paint him looking holy like a Messiah, and that's, even though Jesus in this movie is African descent, he is, not the figure that ends up persisting through history, which I think is a valid criticism of the church. Clearly events that took place in the Middle East would not have some white dude from Europe as their main person. But yeah, outside of that, it's mostly slow paced talking, awkward conversations, poorly timed comedy.
Well, yeah, because like 90% of the movie is him joking and like doing all of these bad things.
Having his friends pretend to be crippled and then, oh, a miracle, he saves
pretending
him.
to like heal people, faking all these miracles, whatever. And yes, he does do some good things with the money. He frees a bunch of slaves and that's good, whatever. But like they're like making all these jokes, and the big thing is him saying there's a difference between belief and knowledge. You might believe that there's a God, but I know that there isn't. And that's 90% of the movie. And then in the last like 5 minutes, Jesus brings him back to life after he gets crucified as a false messiah. And he's like, I don't just believe in God, I know that there's a God. The end. And I'm like, doesn't seem like...
Yeah, I thought where this was going, especially because it's trying to live in this gray area, is that this man who does not believe, just because he doesn't believe does not mean God isn't working through him and making sure good things happen. And so in the end, the people, even though this man might have been doing it for selfish gain, in the end he realizes and he starts doing good things for the community and kind of realizes that by being a good person, I'm following these tenets, and therefore... okay, now I will start to believe them, or learn that belief is more powerful if you want to go with that kind of message. But it doesn't. It's just literally he's up until he's put to death not believing, and then all of a sudden, flip of a coin, like there's no real build up to him being tested in his faith or anything.
Yeah, it's literally like he's about to drown, and instead God makes it so he can walk on water, and it's like... and then that's why he knows that there's a God. But it seems like that's counterintuitive, because like it is changing from he believes, he doesn't know that, or whatever, he knows that there's no God, to he knows that there is one. But it's like, that's kind of giving the message of, unless God literally gives you the sign that you can walk on water, there's nothing that he can do to make you believe in him. And that's just like, it just, again, all of it doesn't add up to be either a comedy or a Christian movie. Yeah.
And like, again, if you're trying to steer people in the modern era towards Christianity, I would have gone with the message that there is no big sign, there is no whatever, and yet this man trying to do bad things finds himself believing and understanding and coming to, and maybe at the end of the movie he doesn't end up being literally raised from the dead and the hero of the people or whatever. He just ends up being another guy who decides, you know what, I'm going to start learning about this and I'm going to go follow Jesus because I like what he's doing, even if at this exact moment I can't 100% say there is a God.
Yeah.
But no. Like, it just, I don't know who this movie's for. I can't believe it was made for $40 million. They're not going to make that money back.
And they also, like, they edit it like the way that old, like, 80s movies were edited. And I thought it was really going to be, like, funny and cool and, like, something more from that era. And it's not good in any way you look at it.
It's like your classic 50s, 60s biblical epic got made by, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on it? Edgar Wright. The guy who does like Hot Fuzz and, you know, the fast cuts, the whip pans, the funny sound effects, the real intense punchy beats, and yet you have these beautiful vistas of the Middle East and, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, just go watch The Life of Brian if you want a good comedy about this kind of subject.
Yeah. But what would you rate it?
A 3.
Yeah, it's about there for me too.
I really liked Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah.
The joke about Benedict Cumberbatch was pretty funny.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to figure out what inspires him. I can just replicate what he does. Imagine the money people will give us.
Hallelujah. All right. Thank you for listening to our episode this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Nerd and Normie, and tune in every Monday for a new episode.
And if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're on audio platform, leave us a 5-star review. Really helps us out.
Thank you.